Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of our ongoing program of book tours. We are featuring fine bindings in the show this summer, and we have a fine binder with us today, Gabby Cooksey. From the very first moment that I saw Gabby's work, I really wanted to meet her because it's obvious that this woman values the book as an object and the craft that goes into making a beautiful book. So without any further, well actually, Gabby lives and works in the Tacoma area. She has a binding studio bound by Cooksey, and she works with Donald Glaister, Suzanne Moore, Jessica Spring, and all of these people put out fine, fine work. So this is a real treat for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. My name is Gabby Cooksey, and I just want to start off with how I started, and then I'll go into my books and my works, because I brought a lot of stuff, and everything I brought you can handle if you just washed your hands. That would be great. I went to art college in Columbus, Ohio, and I really did not like it. I had such a hard time being there, so I secluded myself in a library, and I found this book on books that had gilding and clasps, and I was just enthralled with it. So I got on Google and looked up bookbinding because I had no idea what it was, and schools. So I found American Academy of Bookbinding in Telluride, Colorado. So I dropped out freshman year of college to go to American Academy of Bookbinding, and I was there for a whole year taking every single workshop I could, the conservation, fine bindings, just basics in binding, and I fell completely in love with it. Don Glaister was my first teacher, and he basically said go for it. So there was no strict rules in his class. I mean, you had to do the work, but I had this crazy idea of making a shark teeth book. So it'd be a fine binding, but with shark teeth lining all the edges. And so this was like my first binding, and he was like, yeah, why not? So I did it, and then he said after the binding was done that I was going to go far, and I wrote that down in my journal, and I was like, of course I am. So that's how the seed got planted that I knew I wanted to do this for the rest of my life.
What year was that?
2012.
Okay.
2011. Yeah.
Wow.
And I heard about, while I was at AAB, I heard about North Bennett. And since I just got out of high school and college, I wanted a full-time program, because in Telluride, it's workshop style, so it's 1 week or 2 week classes. And at North Bennett Street School in Boston, it's a full year, and then summer break and a full year. So it's a 2-year program, and I really wanted to go there just to be in it all the time. And I went there in 2012 to 2014, and in between that year I went to Montefiascone project in Italy, and I took a bunch of classes there, which was amazing. So at the end of Bennett, everyone was trying to figure out what to do, because conservation is the way to go. That's how you make money, but that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be Dawn, and I wanted to be Suzanne. So I contacted them, and they said no, because I asked if I could be an apprentice or something, and they had one off work, so they didn't have enough work for another person. I was like, oh, that's fine. And then, like, at Christmas time, I read Pamela Lutz's book, The Thread That Binds. It's a bunch of interviews of bookbinders, really in-depth interviews, and they're lovely. And I read Don's interview, and it said that he wanted to teach somebody, but he hasn't found that one person that he can pass all of his skills on to. So I was like, is this a sign? So I sent him, this isn't it, but I sent him a portfolio like this, and to Suzanne. So I made it super fancy and really nice, and I was like, are you sure you don't need me? Because I would really like to be here. And they actually had work for me. They both started huge edition projects, and Don's is right there. There's an Edgar Allan Poe book that I worked on. And Suzanne's book, Zero book, is right here. I'll show it soon. I worked on those for the summer. And it wasn't a paid thing or anything. It was just see how it goes, and I was just happy to be there. So I moved to Vashon Island in 2014, and I was just there for the summer. And I also got introduced to Jessica Spring in Tacoma at Springtide Press, so I also worked at her letterpress printing studio.
Back to the American Bindery. When you were there, did you meet Daniel Tucker?
I met him at like a dinner. I didn't take class or anything with him. Yeah.
We're 50 years ago, we graduated from high school together.
Really?
And reconnected through the bookbinding community.
Yeah.
And I know that he's like involved at a distance, and he invited me to go, and so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Daniel Tucker helped founded American Academy of Bookbinding, but you never really see him. So, so I worked with Dawn, Suzanne, and Jessica all of the summer of 2014, and since I didn't get paid, they told me I could make an artist book instead, and they would provide the materials and the help, and I could letterpress print at Jessica's studio. So I had the whole summer to come up with this lovely book, and it's called Monsters and Beasts. It's about Greek mythology, the beasts from Greek mythology, and they're all really sad stories, but I love them. So I wanted to do a kind of a retelling of them, but just really short retelling of them. So, thank you. They're silk screened on this side. They're photopolymer plates that I used to print at Jessica's studio. Hand set type, hand painted the blue and the gold throughout it. And it's made on Arch's text wove paper.
Is it one-off, or did you make a series?
Yeah, it's an edition of 22, and it's all sold out, which is great. So far I've been doing my editions on my age, and I don't know what that's... So I'm going to show my latest book. It's going to be of 26. And
That's a really cool idea.
it's going to end soon because it's a lot. But I like the idea when I started.
Maybe you should hit 30.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I made this lovely Monsters and Beasts book. I was very, very happy with it. It's made on cave paper, and the cover image is a blown up version of one of the animals. Each cover is a little different, and it's gold foil on the cover. So should I pass it around?
It's up to you.
No?
Yeah,
Okay.
edition, but they're still individualized.
Yeah. So
Most of them
each
have washed
one-
their hands.
Yeah, each one is painted a little differently, so each is a little funky.
Did you do all the drawing?
Yeah, I did all of it. And I brought like test stuff we can see afterwards. Like you can see my process of how I did it.
It's like
Yeah.
hiding- I love how this design is hiding inside
Yeah.
the page.
I'm really into the shadow of a page, so sorry, I'm gonna pick this up again.
That's really cool.
You can see the image of the next page coming, so there's the antlers of this guy showing through this, and I really like the idea of shadow play. Now I wish I would have used a thinner page, because I can see it, but a lot of people can't see it unless I tell them. So if you like pop open the page, you can see the black silk screening I did. But yeah.
It's like a kind of a mirror even.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
it draws the viewer deeper.
yeah, and I like that about it.
Yeah, I like that about artist books in general.
I'm gonna actually get Suzanne's book out. Here's the book. So Suzanne's been working on this book. I don't think this is it. Oh yeah. Suzanne was working on this book for 2 years whenever I came in 2014. And so some of these pages have like 2 years of work on them. And day one at working at their studio, she was having me gold tool on these pages. Like, how terrifying is that? But I kept my cool. I was like, it's fine. And then like a year later, I could tell them I was terrified because you can't mess up. Like, so I got to do all these arcs, curves, and gilding on it. So
Did you
Yeah.
see that once before, that book? I remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
usually. And I helped bind this book too. I put all the pages together and put the cave paper on. And yeah, I painted some of the red color, and it's just a lot of little stuff I did for it. But it was a big edition, so I had to do a lot of it.
But it's the nuances of that book that are just so enticing.
Mhm.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
What's the edition?
A lot, like 50? Yeah. She
And
sold
that's
them all out.
Jessica Spring, as that's.
Yeah,
the print.
Jessica Spring printed it, and yeah.
Hmm.
And this is Dawn's book that I first worked on. This is the Bells book, and so this was also day one. I was sewing and putting all this metal work and learning how to hinge,
Oh, wow.
and this is actually really cool to see again because I haven't seen it since it left us.
That's unusual.
Yeah, so I sewed on these guys. I think some of my writing is in the background too.
So is that
Is my
thin
hand in
sheets
the way?
of metal?
Oh, okay. I'm so
Yeah, these are thin sheets of metal, yeah. And then he wanted this to look like metal, but it's Bristol.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And are they mathematical formulas or mathematical writings?
Yeah, yeah.
What's the name of it?
The Bells,
Oh.
the Edgar Allan Poe poem.
Printed or?
Yeah, this was printed at Jessica's too.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, she prints on metal.
yeah,
Wow.
She's
I guess
fearless.
I have to go to Tacoma.
yeah. My next binding that I took on was this Death Gods book. It's a series of stories about death gods from around the world. So like Hades, Baba Yaga, Haitian gods. This is my test one, so I mean you can look at it, but it's not pretty. I did a leather binding version of it.
Hmm.
And so it's printed on really thin paper because I like the shadowness of it all. So you can see behind
Oh.
everything. And I gilded on it. I printed it at Jessica's. These are photopolymer plates. But this one has a lot in it, a lot of symbology, because I did all these borders to relate to plants, because whenever you die, you go in the earth. So I wanted all these images to be worms and roots. The story of each god symbolizes their story. So Sedna drowns in her story, so I wanted the type to start at the top and then settle at the bottom. So this is all hand-set type.
Hmm.
And Baba Yaga, nobody likes her, so I just wanted all the type to also settle at the bottom.
Is Kali in the book?
No, she's not. No. This is Anubis. His story has a piercing eye because his eyes would dilate. I thought that was really neat. Hades. This is the moon.
Hmm.
This is Baron Samedi, a Haitian death god. His is an hourglass. Hel, the Norse death god. Hers is a snake fang because she has pet snakes that chill at her throne. This is the Aztec death god. I can't say his name, but I call him Mac because he has a really long name. And he was terrifying he had a lot of scary stories written about him. And it's just a lot of sacrifices. So this was the sacrifice in the pit for him. And then the end is a yew tree because a lot of graveyards have yew trees in them. So I wanted the background to be a yew tree and my colophon.
Is that, a lot of cemeteries have yew trees in general? Like
I
that
was
across the board, they're
That's
kind of a
interesting,
popular
yeah.
tree for cemeteries?
Yeah, I was
Wow.
looking more in England, in the UK. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's a Chinese tree,
Mhm.
its origins are Chinese.
Oh.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So-
Peggy, did you take the images that were out there already and alter them?
No, I watercolored them and then I scanned them into a into my scanner, and then I manipulated them on Photoshop, and then I got the photopolymer plates made. So this is my big old glob of the process. So these are how they got printed and how I could either tweak the photopolymer plates, cut things out I didn't want, how the text was going to get centered on the binding. So it's just a lot to think about, and I had Jessica with me at all times too, helping me print, because I never printed before. I mean, besides the monster.
I'll take her the plates eventually.
Oh, here. They're
Oh
this.
my goodness.
Yeah, so you lay them on the press bed.
So you cut the plates?
They are,
razor, or
they have a photo negative. You get a negative from
Is it
the
okay to
photo
cut
store.
this?
Yeah. You get a negative from the photo store, this negative, and then Jessica has a machine that works with photopolymer plates, so you put this in and it somehow shows the light through to the plastic and makes that mold. Yeah, it's amazing.
So it's curved. Does that make the back plate looks like it's
Oh, I cut it. So I
Oh.
try to fit, you get a sheet, you get a plate, and you try to fit as many images on there so you don't waste it, and then you cut it all up.
Wow, there's so much detail and thoughtfulness put into every single aspect of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking for, these are, the paper is so delicate, but it's really, really strong, and that's what I wanted for a Death God book. It's delicate and strong.
Is that Japanese paper?
Yes.
Oh.
It's in the colophon, the name of the Japanese paper. I don't remember it. I was
Because it
looking.
works really well in collages, it disappears.
Yeah.
So you can trace things
Yeah.
onto it and cover it with gel medium and it goes, the paper flies goes.
So these are the original drawings. I just watercolored them on, and then I drew a border and then layer it on to see how I wanted it to look like in
And
the
those
end.
are your drawings, your interpretations of what these.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I did a lot of research. I had an idea of what
Mhm.
he looked like, top hat guy and suit, stand up straight, but I wanted him to look down on people because that's what he did. So I was just looking at a lot of model magazines too.
Well done.
Yeah,
How many did you make of this book?
24.
Is it
23 or
sold- is it sold
24.
out?
No.
It's so cool because you know how old you were when you made them.
I know.
Depending on the number. Wow.
Yeah. And I have the original drawings from, this is my
I
archival
love the Cheerios box.
archival folder.
Cereal boxes are handy for lots of stuff.
Yeah, they are. So I did all this is the original drawings for the Monsters and Beasts, and it's ink and pen.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you do some freehand drawing
I drew it on
or on,
regular paper, and then I traced it, and then
not InDesign
yeah.
good. I
Yeah.
like it.
I just clean it up.
Still drawing.
Yeah, so whenever I scan this image into my computer, there's a lot, maybe I scratched something real quick and I
Yeah.
didn't want to redraw the whole thing, so I can just erase it on Photoshop.
It's a good combination.
Yeah. So if anyone, this is the photopolymer plate, if people want to feel it.
Fun.
Oh, hey! My next book was for the Puget Sound, we could pass that around.
Oh, yeah.
For the 2 years ago Puget Sound Book Artist exhibition show. It was a theme show, and for some reason the theme, I'm really bad at themes. It was an open theme basically, but it had to do with Washington State. And that's like anything, but I was having so much trouble, so I just took a walk one day with my dog, and it was rainy and gross out, so I saw these pictures of the beautiful tree, moss, grossness. It was beautiful to me.
Beautiful grossness.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took these images, I flipped them back and forth on the computer, I printed them on inkjet, and then I, what do you call it? photo transferred them. Yeah. So it's kind of, I wanted it to be harder to see the images. Like you can tell it's from nature, but you don't really know what's going on. I used varnish to bring out the lighter brown and greens.
Is the type collaged on there?
Yeah, the type is actually printed from my computer, and
Do you use like InDesign for
I
typesetting?
use Illustrator for everything.
type?
Yeah. Yeah, and the quote is by Walt Whitman about walking in the woods.
Yeah.
And I use the same Japanese paper I used in this book as the type. And I actually made a really great mistake. I put this type on, I put it in the press to tighten it overnight, and in the morning the pages just stuck and ruined everything down here. So I was so frustrated and mad, and then I was like, I'll just cover it up with some gold. And it turned out great.
Go with it.
I'm really happy with how it turned out, and so you can't even tell. This one's my version. No, there's 6 of them. Yeah, there's 6 of them. This is my version, so you can tell I added a title page and stuff and a colophon in the end book, but my artist book is just me figuring out how it works.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like the texture you figuring
What was the process where that photo transfer, where you put the image on the page?
Yeah, so you inkjet your image out, and then you put matte medium on this tree side. You push it down onto the paper, really bone fold it, let it dry for a day, wet it, and then the paper flakes off, and then the image is still there.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's such a great celebration, though, of that which is winter and cold, dark, wet
Yeah.
weather in Washington, which is that,
Yeah.
what brings the spring.
Yeah.
Mark Demunation was visiting last year, and we were showing him books from the collection that he might not have seen, and we pulled that one out, and the instant he saw it, he said, "I love that book."
Oh, that's funny.
Obviously at the Library of Congress.
Because
Wow.
I made this book just for just for that exhibition, and Don was like, "You're putting all this work into it. Why not make a couple more?" I was like, that makes sense, because it was a lot of work. And like my other books, I was thinking of edition of 10, but you put so much work into it,
Yeah.
might as well make a little bit more book.
And it's a way to get the message out
Yeah.
broader, to share it.
Yeah, so that's why I've been doing my age. Keep going with my age.
Is that all original text in that? Did you
Yeah.
write all of that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
beautifully expressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, the typesetting, my goodness.
No, yeah, the pictures are cool of how I typeset that. But yeah, I wrote all the stories. I researched a lot of the stories so I could understand. I mean, there's a million different versions of one story. So
Did you use first to pick up the type? Or?
yeah, because that's small type. I think it's like
When
10 point or 12 point.
I was a kid, we went to the newspaper office and they were still using lead type for the newspaper.
Yeah. Sorry, back to the Death God. So that's a very fancy, you can keep that. That's a very fancy version. I had it for an exhibition, the open set exhibition for American Academy of Bookbinding. This is what it usually looks like. It's housed in a coffin box, and it's a paper cover. It doesn't look like this. This is my version. I don't have any more of these paper. I have that one.
I love that you individualized each one. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Right? It still acknowledges the beauty of each
Yeah.
book.
And the Book of Penumbra. They're all nailed. You can see all the nails on the coffin too. I used crackle paste in here to make it look old and weathered. Yeah. My book that I'm working on now, I've been working on for a long time. It's a beetle book. It's a book about beetles, like the insect. And I'm making these acrylic painted backgrounds, and I'm making these embossed aluminum beetles on the other side. So I'm either telling the story about a beetle, or there's 4 original, like Charles Darwin wrote something. I had a couple other people in here that wasn't just my voice, but I wanted you to not tell that I wrote them, so they're all marked with like Dr. Wallace something, but it's all me. Yeah, so I've been working a lot on the Beetle book, and I'm about to print it in August so you can see how it was, because I'm still in the throes of all this process stuff. I'm still doing all this process work. There's a beetle in here called the Wallace Longhorn beetle,
Yeah.
and I made up a story. He has really long antennas, so I made up a story of how the beetle was the one who invented the whip, and some cowboy saw it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the book will have are they metal?
Yeah, they're aluminum that I embossed, and
Okay.
alcohol, paint,
Oh.
yeah.
You
So-
have such a breadth of materials in your work. It's
I
really
know.
awesome.
I mean, working with Don and Suzanne, they feel free to use anything, so I'm not scared to work with anything.
Fearless.
Yeah, so this is one that'll get mounted on a page that you can look at. This is more process of how I was thinking of doing the aluminum on like kitchen aluminum, but it was so thin that it wouldn't hold anything. But these are the process beetles I was working on to see what I wanted. And they're all cut out, and I use a hammer with a rubber ball to smash the aluminum down in.
And how thick is that, the little,
The aluminum?
the little thing that you?
Oh, it's not that thick.
Okay, so this is, and you work around this.
Hmm.
Is that cardstock or?
Yeah, it's 80-pound paper, Bristol.
Oh, yeah. Is it okay to pass that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm printing it in August, and hopefully in September I'll have it done for shows and whatnot.
And how many will you make?
26.
Wow. Generally, what's the time frame? I mean, just overall, like a year, 6 months for a lot of your books.
It depends. I work a lot of different jobs so I can do this. I work with Don and Suzanne 2 days a week. I work with Jessica once a week. I garden also to make money.
Yeah.
So I just try to make time when I can for this. And so this book, I was looking at a journal and I saw that it's been a year. I was like, oh, it's been too long.
Is it okay to pass one of the pieces of metal that we could see?
Yeah.
Right around?
Totally.
That's inspiring because it helps us, like, you know, okay, yeah, sometimes it just takes time and
It does
patience.
take time.
And
Yeah.
flowering.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not a good one. Where's this? Oh, thank you.
Where did the
I have
beetle
it.
come from? You cut that out from a?
Yeah, he has a name. I don't remember his name right now. I mean, he's in there.
Max Beetle.
Alright, you look at this.
Yeah.
Camera, everything around.
Currently, I teach Puget Sound book artists too, and I teach about once a week, and I've been doing the Puget Sound exhibition work, so I've been trying to make a lot of time for books, but it's very hard too. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a design background, and I had the hardest time figuring something out. I think I maybe drove you nuts, Amy. I kept saying, but who designs these? I mean, it's a different terminology and structure of work,
Yeah.
where as a designer I worked with a variety of different kinds of people. And, you know, printers, letterpress, typesetters, specialists, color separators, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it finally occurred to me, really just about a week ago, that I think that where it all comes together in the book arts world is in the binder or the bindery. Am I correct in assuming that?
It depends on like maybe your book dealer wants something specific, or your person that commissioned you wants something on the cover. But I've been lucky enough to have the freedom to do what I want on the binding, and yeah, it's mainly.
But there's much more to it than the physical binding. You've put together stories and you've researched and you've set type. You've gone through all those production elements, and I remember the first time that I came in here like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was looking at these books and I thought, but who designs them? Who designs them?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get
Like
that.
an integrator.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's all beginning to hit now, but it's taken a while. And to hear you say that things can sit, I ran into a major like bindery issue with a paper issue. And those 3 projects, until I found a solution, have sat. And this week they begin to move again.
Yeah.
So you've really inspired me, because I thought, oh my God, what's wrong with me?
Yeah,
Why
no.
can't I figure this out?
Oh, I know.
And I realize it's probably what everybody goes through. Yeah.
And right now, I just bought a house in Tacoma, and I'm changing the garage into a studio right now. So that's taken some time. I mean, I've been using the second bedroom as a studio, but
Oh
it's
God,
not.
that's what I'm doing. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
It's driving me. I feel like every time I turn around, I'm walking into something. Yeah.
I feel the same way. I have no leather bindings. I mean, no. I have that one leather binding I showed you, but most of them are gone, or luckily in a collection. But I brought some process work of how I've done a lot of them. They mainly start off with non-archival things. So just tracing paper and doodling over and over again, and making the layout of a book and just trying out new designs of the cover. I really love doing that. This was a Brothers Grimm book that I did. That was great. My book dealers are Vamp and Tramp and Ian Kahn, Lux Mentis booksellers in Portland, Maine. So they get all my work, so I don't have to be the business.
Salesperson.
Yeah, because I'm not good at that.
Excuse me. How did you actually process the leather to create that texture on the book?
Oh, that's varnish. So it's just black leather, and then I put varnish on it. Yeah, and I just used a paintbrush on it.
If you wanted to take some of Suzanne's process print,
Yeah.
talk about those, and you can share them with everybody.
Yeah. So there's a lot of bindings by Dawn around here that I've worked on, and the boxes I've worked on.
You are fond of perfect binding?
Yeah. I am.
You do it very beautifully.
Oh, thank you. This is Suzanne's zero book, but the process of how she did it all. So she made these beautiful notes and how she did everything. She got them all printed. So like I think 5 collections own this little folder.
Did she herself come one day, or was it?
She
She
talked.
has done, yeah. So I helped make this folder. I did the gilding on the cover. I made this here. I mean, she did the doodles, but I made the paste down for it. They're very beautiful.
Oh, for Cynthia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was really cool to make this whole project with her. And so everyone just trusts me now to make the box however I want to make the box. I've made, like Dawn has a book back there with triangles on it, and I had to make the box fit those triangles, because if you lay them on top, the triangles are going to rub off on the book cloth. So I had to make a step into the box, and that was a fun. I really like puzzle boxes. Like maybe there's a shelf in there you have to pull out, that there's a page. I really like doing that. But it's funny, when I graduated Bennett, I thought I was never going to make a box again. And this is all I do now, and it's totally fine. I love making boxes.
How long were you at Bennett?
2 years.
2 years. I spoke to them about a year ago when I was visiting my cousin and doing some family business.
Yeah.
And I have to honestly say, it's really rare to meet such a group of such incredibly beautiful people
Uh-huh.
that are so welcoming. It was
Yeah.
really unbelievably so much that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
A family.
It definitely feels like a family. And the teacher, Jeff Alderpeter, is a great teacher. I mean,
Do you know Paul McClinton on Whidbey?
I don't know him, but I've
He's
heard
a
of him.
binder out of Bennett, I think.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Did you ever meet Frank and talk to Frank about bookbinding? Because that was
Mary?
his thing. Frank, Cynthia's husband.
Oh. Mm.
Oh,
Those are his bindings.
his
and
stuff
the
is magic.
Uh-huh.
You guys
Cool.
would have
Henry
loved
Miller
talking
in the
to him.
hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have.
Open it up for questions.
Yeah. We're just looking around. I have
He says he does
stuff to pass. Oh.
How did you actually fix the sharp teeth to this binding here?
Oh, I epoxied them in there.
Yeah,
And they were
yeah,
able to
they've seen
hold
it down at this
steady?
end.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're
This is my favorite little binding. I made it at Bennett. Jim Croft came and taught
Oh, yeah, he was.
at Bennett.
Did he come in the other day? To see? Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah,
They've
yeah.
seen it.
He was just here, you just missed it.
Aw.
That was,
Yeah, he teaches class making, and so I made a binding that wasn't this. It was very traditional. So after he left, I could do what I wanted, and I did. And the clasps and the brass work. It's a blank book, but I love this book. Yeah. So when you're opening it, watch out. It's pretty sharp.
did you do the photography yourself in your portfolio?
Yeah. But luckily, my best friend is a graphic designer, so she put it together.
Wow. And
Yeah.
is this where you actually painted on the edges of the book?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of books and collections around the U.S. Library of Congress was a big milestone for me because they own somewhere, and the Monsters and Beasts books. That's really cool. Yeah.
They may own this one too. How many of these have you sold, the leather version?
There's only one. The other ones I have to make. There's 2 more paperback, but I have to
Mean
make
if
them.
someone chooses to buy one, then you'll make it. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you print it already? Have you printed some?
Yeah, everything's
have to
done.
reset that title.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I usually at Jessica's I work. I don't get paid, so I could do my work, and that's a very lovely trade-off.
It must be so gratifying for you to have your work appreciated and
Oh, man.
honored and acknowledged, because it sounds like you're very successful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it. But I mean, since it's been a year since I've made a book, I'm just itching to get back out there again and make leather bindings too. I've made a lot recently. They're all in exhibitions right now.
Do you have a
Some of them.
particular favorite kind of leather that you like to work with?
I like calf a lot because I can. Fine binders don't like this, but I really like scratching it up and beating it up, and that's what I like about calf.
And goat is too thin, or?
No, goat's fine. It's just very grainy, and I don't like
Oh.
grain if it's very showy.
Is this printed on the leather to get the texture?
So there's the photopolymer plate.
Uh-huh.
I put it in a press, smushed
That
it.
little one that went around.
Yeah, something like that, and I smushed it while the leather was wet,
Nice.
and then I put the varnish all over it.
Nice.
You had a question?
I did, but it just flew out my brain.
I'm always so grateful. I mean, I'm not a collector and I'm not yet a full book artist, but I'm always so grateful when people do more than one edition.
Yeah.
Because it just means that it gets out there, that it's not like hoarded in someone's private secret collection and all you get to see is photos
Yeah.
or behind glass. So thank you.
Yeah.
That is really a gift, I think, to the public.
The most recent leather binding I've done is a book called Human Monstrosities, and it was this 2-part book about, it was like an oddity book from the 1920s. And it was actually really sad, but they just showcased people with like 3 legs or something. And
Yes.
so I got to bind that, and it sold really well. So that was great.
Hopefully it's a win-win because you get to be more prosperous.
Leaning on
Yeah, yeah.
Having your art, sell, and then also that more people can appreciate it.
Yeah, and my book dealer sent me that book, so sometimes he'll send me a book in sheets, and then I get to bind it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So are these gonna be the actual part of the book? Or
No,
this is
those
just
are
the
tests.
working? Cause those alone are so.
I know, they are
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. And I love the print on the back of the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a poem.
I was really trying.
So these are all made up beetles.
They are real beetles, but the
Oh.
stories are
Oh,
made up. Yeah.
I like the skull beetle.
Yeah, right?
So have you encountered many of these in your garden?
One. Yeah. A lot of them are really, I wanted them to be snazzy beetles, so they're not.
Like in Asia, Indonesia.
Yeah, they're not
Japan.
from here.
Such exciting things here.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that portfolio I made 2 years ago, and I sent it out. Like, my dream is to have a book in a movie set or something, and I sent it out. And I got some really nice replies back. I didn't get any jobs, but
Yes.
they really appreciated that portfolio. And one of my favorite authors, Patrick Rothfuss, is a fantasy author, and I got to bind a book for him. So something cool came out of it. Yeah, those are burnt in the portfolio. The teeth are burnt with a wood burner. Like a wood burner pen.
His teeth keep
I love teeth. I love bones.
How many of these did you make?
Like 10? Yeah. Yeah. They took a long time, and I sent them out for free. Because no one asked. I mean, I was just sending them cold call, so.
Have you been to the Library of Congress?
No. Yeah, I want to go with my mom one day and show her.
Heaven on earth, right?
Yeah.
And have you been to Washington, University of Washington, their book collection?
Yeah, that's very nice. They have a couple of my books too.
Uh,
Yeah. And so does UPS in Tacoma.
The lady who curates that collection
Jane?
came and spoke to us, and she was awesome.
Yeah,
It was so much
she's
fun.
she is so for
Oh.
book arts and
Yeah.
anything. It's great.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.